All right, so we are back with step number 5, talking about sleep. And as you can probably figure out, I was going to put up a whole bunch of statistics here showing how most people don't get nearly enough sleep, but I think most of you already know that. And if you don't get enough sleep, your stress level is going to go up. Not only because you don't have a way of buffering that stress by sleep, the fact that you are deprived of sleep is a stressor in and of itself. So you kind of get the double whammy from that. If I could wave my magic wand and make any singular change in terms of stress management in people, my number 2 change right after them measuring their stress, which was module 1, step 1, using HRV, would be for them to get a lot more sleep and a lot higher quality of sleep. So you're probably wondering why the heck I put it as step 5 then. The reason for that is in my experience, it's one of the harder things to modify in people. So that's why it's a little bit further down on the list. It doesn't mean that it's less important, however. So enhancing the quality of sleep, as we'll see coming up here, is what I'm focusing on. Of course, if you can get more higher quality sleep, obviously that's going to be a beneficial thing. But just like training, focus on the quality of work first and then the quantity. Same thing with nutrition, same thing with pretty much everything else. Quality first and then quantity. The cool part about that is you can take the same amount of time that you've allocated for sleep now, that's 5 or 6 or 7 hours. Hopefully it's more than that, but I'm being realistic here. And enhance the quality of that sleep. And in essence, you're not sleeping longer. So in terms of time out of your busy schedule, which is a separate discussion, you are getting a higher quality of sleep, and therefore you will be better without having the argument of you just need more sleep. So here's like one of the really cool studies I found, because I'm a huge geek. I like cool studies. So it's 15 human subjects. This was done by Hunzel in 2011. And this was done in human subjects, not fuzzy rats. They had an average body fat of about 21%. So that's actually pretty good. I mean, these were generally, relatively by population standards, pretty lean individuals. So these were not extremely overweight individuals. And again, like I said, generally healthy. So what they did is they locked them up in a metabolic chamber for 2 whole days. If you're not familiar with the concept of a metabolic chamber, they literally can monitor everything these subjects are doing. They literally keep track of the amount of food that comes in, the temperature of the food, the calories in the food. They've got all sorts of cool ways of monitoring how much movement they do. And in essence, they are tracking everything possible. Now, granted, this is what's called a closed system. So this does not necessarily mean that these same behaviors will be exhibited by the same people once they are out. But it's the most practical way in an attempt to make it as close to free living as possible, but yet control all the different things that go into it and take a whole bunch of different measurements. They use a crossover design, which is a good thing. It allows each person to serve as their own control. We know that each person's going to have slightly different metabolism and how much they move around, what their response to feeding is, all sorts of different things. So by using a crossover design, each person then serves as their control, and you'll have 2 different types of interventions. You can measure what they find. So day 1, they allowed them to sleep normally. This was normal for each individual, and they monitored their sleep by EEG, where they take and put a bunch of electrodes on your head and monitor your brain waves and all that kind of fun stuff. And then in the second time that they did it, the same thing, but this time they fragmented their sleep. In essence, they only allowed them to sleep for 1 hour at a time. Got more details on that. The key part here is that it was the same duration of sleep. So again, they are comparing the same amount of time that they slept, but in one instance, they fragmented their sleep. We'll get into the exact definition of that. But in essence, they only allowed them to sleep for 1 hour at a time before waking them up. The other condition, they allowed them to just sleep normally. So in essence, what they're doing is they're decreasing the quality of sleep on day 2. Here's the actual study. It's from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So pretty reputable journal. So the fragmentation of sleep was accomplished with approximately hour wake-up calls that varied in frequency between 500 to 2000 hertz and in intensity between 40 to 110 decibels. So subjects confirmed waking by turning off their alarm after 2 minutes. So what they did is they designed this horrible alarm clock that varied the frequency and the intensity of the noise, but they were woken up approximately every hour. And the subjects had to confirm that they were awake by shutting off their alarm clock within 2 minutes. So if you think about how often you've woken up in the middle of the night, odds are you probably won't remember it a lot in the morning, right? Which is kind of interesting with the new watches and different types of tracking they have. In the past, I've used a Zeo device. Unfortunately, they're out of business now, but that used an accelerometer and an EEG looking at brain waves to determine different sleeping patterns. Unfortunately, you had to wear this little thing across your head, and it looked kind of weird, but my wife told me it looked sexy, although I don't know if I believe her. So in this case, the subjects may not necessarily remember waking up every hour, but they did confirm it by turning off an alarm clock. This is how they fragmented their sleep. What they found was that the fragmented sleep group had a direct impairment of fat oxidation. So in English, that means they used less fat as a fuel. They literally burned less fat. If you look at the study to see what the difference was, so fat oxidation was 61 grams per day in the non-fragmented sleep, so the normal sleep group, and it dropped to 29 grams per day in the fragmented group. So this is literally about half. And that's a measurement of how much fat they are using. So when you severely impair someone's sleep, based on this study, you use about 1/2 less fat as a fuel source. Now, if we extrapolate this to 1 month, and granted this is via an overly simplified calorically burned model, which of course does have all of its issues and things of that nature, but it's a rough approximation for this study. You see a difference of about 2 pounds a month of fat gain. Now, we don't quite see that difference per se in sort of some of the longitudinal studies, but there isn't really a long-term study that I know of that has looked at this. So as far as I know, this is kind of our best guess, right? And remember that these people slept the same amount of time. Just one day, they had a higher quality of sleep versus the other day. So this is not by changing the duration of your sleep. I'm guessing that if we increase your duration, it'll probably help also. So that's our conclusion there. Just by changing the quality of your sleep, you can increase the body's ability to use fat as a fuel source. So how do you actually do that? What would be sort of your top 5 action steps to do? One of them is a little bit surprising. It's actually less water before bed. A lot of people who drink a lot of water before bed have to get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. By doing that, you are then sort of fragmenting your sleep. Now, if that's only once, probably not a big deal, but I've had some clients where this is 3 or 4 times a night, and they may only sleep 6 hours. So they've already fragmented a good portion of their sleep. So try to cut back on the amount of fluids you are using before bed if you are one of those people. Use earplugs to keep down noise or some type of white noise generator. Just a fan works really well for that. You can get fancy and get some apps and other machines that'll generate that type of thing for you. I do a fair amount of travel, so I always travel with an eye mask and earplugs that I just permanently leave in my bag. So they're always in there just in case I get somewhere where it's noisy. Recently we were in Los Angeles and we had a pretty cool place we had rented, Airbnb, right off of the Hollywood area. And it was crazy noisy at night. And they didn't have air conditioning that was working, so we had to leave the windows open. And having earplugs was definitely beneficial. Make your sleeping room a sleeping cave. Have it be dark as possible. Includes room darkening shades. Are probably some of the best $100 you'll ever spend. In our bedroom, we've got room darkening shades and then a curtain that goes on top of that. Turn off your alarm clocks, or at minimum, flip them down so they're not glowing in your face. If you travel a lot, I always carry a little bit of black electrical tape with me. It sounds a little bit neurotic, but I use it to cover up any of the bright buttons in the room because those actually can shed more light than you realize. So make it dark, make it as cool as possible. That's a whole different topic, but in general, people sleep much better when it's cool. Try to minimize electronics as best you can. I don't think you need to go bonkers and try to create a Faraday cage in your bedroom or anything like that, but try to minimize them as best you can. Like I mentioned, the alarm clock, either unplug it or flip it down. If you need to use it, don't have the light facing you all the time. If you have your phone next to your bed, I'd highly recommend airplane mode. One, because you don't need to be woken up in the middle of the night by that. And two, that also cuts any sort of transmissions from it. While we can debate all time about different EMF and different signals and EMI and all that kind of stuff, I think for now, from what I've seen, just try to minimize it as best you can. Less blue light before bed makes a big difference, and I've noticed that some people are much more sensitive to this than other people. But in general, I've noticed that it does help quite a bit. So the short version is that blue light is kind of stimulatory and tells your body that, hey, it's time to wake up. So by minimizing that in the evening, you help less destruction of the sleep-wake cycle. Cool program for your computer is called Flux, F.LUX. It's a free program. I have it on my Mac that I use here. And what it does is it pulls out the blue light in your screen as you get closer to bedtime. And I found that that's super beneficial. You can also go crazy and get kind of some of the yellow shades to kind of wear. I've noticed that some people that helps quite a bit. Other people don't notice much of a difference. Make it darker as soon as you can. And you can also install low blue light bulbs in your bed, or bedroom, I should say. So in our bedroom, we've got a little lamp next to the bed that's got a low blue light in it. So we turn that on before bed. We don't have as much blue light. In the morning, we've got a separate one that's on a light switch to just open the curtains, or if it's really early, turn on the overhead light, which is just a standard light bulb. There are some supplements that can help. My favorite in that area is the Sleepzyme. I can get that from MikeTNelson.com/sleep. Yep, that is an affiliate link, and I do make a few bucks off it, but they've got a really nice guarantee. They list everything that's on the label, and does have some melatonin in it, which is beneficial, some other herbs that, in essence, just help you relax a little bit. There isn't really any supplement per se that's going to force you to sleep. There's only things that will help you sleep a little bit better at night. Even the pharmaceutical drugs that people can get a prescription for, they will, in essence, kind of knock you out, kind of turn off the monkey mind, so to speak. But they are notorious for disrupting your sleep architecture. So they knock you out, but your body doesn't really go through all the phases of sleep that it needs. So I'm not a fan of those if you can avoid them, if at all possible. Some supplements like Sleepzyme can help a little bit. Another key with that is anything that has melatonin in it, you want to take earlier than later, because it can help reset to that circadian rhythm a little bit. And you'd want to ideally take them as it starts to get dark. So if you go to bed at, let's say, midnight, and where you live has been dark for 3 hours, taking your sleep supplement at that time, if it has melatonin in it, probably not a good idea. In essence, you're training your body a little bit that your sleep cycle is much later. And most people need help getting to bed earlier. So I tell clients, try to time that right as it starts to get dark, and then just plan on going to bed earlier. So those are my top 5 action steps for sleep related to fat loss and especially stress management. I thought the study about sleep and fat loss was very interesting. So not only can sleep help you control your stress, but it also helps you prevent that big monkey wrench from fat loss, body composition changes also. So you have the top 5 items there, so pick one off the list and get to it.